about 400 years ago, a little over 400 years ago, Earth was building its first O'Neill cylinder, which is a completely, it's a giant cylinder that spins for gravity and is designed to like be a full city in space that's completely sustainable. They were in the process of building this out in the 5th Lagrange point, which is just a stable orbit. Anyway, the reason that's important is it's like a 2-week fly to Earth, so you're not close to Earth in any way, shape, or form. And while they were under construction here, Earth underwent global thermal nuclear war, and within like 3 hours, all of it was just like a wasteland, and the satellites overhead were like blown up by EMPs and stuff. So they rapidly realized, it was like half completed, and they rapidly realized that they would need to band together. So there are other mining ships and other people, and they all came together, and they hobbled together what they could to kind of complete it, and they decided that they needed to do was survive long enough for Earth to become habitable again. And so now we're 500 years, so then about 300 years after that, society had become very feudal, and whatever your parents did, you did, and that wasn't really a recipe to have like the best people in charge. And so something happened, and the fifth ring, there's a large explosion that killed about 1,000 people, and they've been keep the population stable at 6,000 because that's like what they can sustain long term. And so there's a birth lottery and all that stuff. And so that was a big disaster, which led to a revolt to the system they have now, where there are 6 quote-unquote Senate seats. It's really like a council. And the ones with stars are ones that people have already made characters that have positions that are like already exist. But when you guys talk about your family or other people, they can be people in the Senate. So those are like the 6 major positions, and those are elected positions. And then there's the captaincy, who gets the veto vote on that council thing.
So it sounds like, so should we all be, because it's such a small community, are we related to the Senate seats?
Well,
or because we happen to be a special group in the Senate?
Yeah, when I decided the character, I didn't mean for that to happen, but it's sort of...
So it doesn't, you don't have to be.
Okay.
But it's such a small community that it's like,
you probably know
it's like, this is a town of 6,000 people, right? Like, and so everyone kind of knows that Tubbs is running around screaming nonsense. But,
you only need to tell people about it.
Lights on. Not nonsense, my child.
It's entertaining. So let's break down what the ship looks like. So they had 5 rings, and then there's the dead ring, and after it was blown up, they had to rebalance it so they could get the spin and artificial gravity going. So they took an old ship from the guts and moved it up there, and this is the Egoge, and this is where, this is how they fix the problem of inherited jobs, is every kid from 8 to 16 for 8 years would go and study at the Egoge, and then they would then be placed in an apprenticeship, and so that way they could put the people where they needed to be for the highest, so that's like a common thing that everyone's gone through, and it's like very harsh like training.
Ended up in the trash.
Yeah, well, because they just saw him as a dumb brute, and they're like, we need a day laborer, so...
I can squeeze things hard
enough.
That's what really matters.
Including skulls now.
So that's the Egoge. You have I have 3 unnamed living rings. There's only one that's got a name so far, it's the ranch. And so like you do have like livestock and stuff, food growing, because you need like a whole ecosystem going. So there's a ranch where they have pigs and chickens. And those are that's the meat. And the spine connects everything. So if you're imagining what this is there's a big long, like 10-kilometer long spine, and then the rings spin around it. And so there's 0G in the spine, and then in the cylinders there's artificial gravity through spin. And then you have the market, which is like a half bulb. And then you have the park, which is like a 0G park. That's like a public park. And then you have the upper decks, which is where like the command staff and the council live. And it's like the kind of the brain of the whole system that works. And then at the far end of the spine, you have what's called the guts. And this is the leftover parts and ships from everything that was cobbled together. Everything that was in the L5 system came together, and they like glued it together, and they just needed storage of like materials. And it's basically just a hodgepodge mess. And it's basically, people will find little places to grow pot down there, right? Because there's pretty much the only crime is illegal substances and because
Murder?
murder is very rare because like there's 6,000 people, but accidents are not so rare because it's dangerous. You're living in space, right?
Whoops.
Yeah. So that's a pretty quick overview. Any like major questions?
What's the major illicit substance that's trafficked?
Alcohol.
No
That's
spice?
illegal?
Do they spice?
Crack heroin.
No, you have it's rational.
heroin.
So certain quantities, like
Kind of vote for
certain
there to be
fruits
spice.
are illegal.
No, just make it so.
And, well,
it's also spice.
and like mushrooms are also big because
Thank
you don't need like lights to grow. But there are like illegal grow ups going on down there, and that's like the main job of the police force is to like make sure that the resources are allocated correctly so that the ship continues to survive. Because if people just like bred and like make food willy-nilly, you would rapidly the balance of oxygen to carbon dioxide in the system would go out of whack, right?
Is that the actual size of the guts? Because
Yeah.
That's the actual map of it?
It's not like a direct map because it's like more convoluted than that, but like
Right.
that gives an idea of the scale. It's about the same size as the upper decks in the market.
It's a lot of
So
ships.
there will also be like parts of that we don't know about because they're underground, I assume.
That you could in theory like find it on a map, but it's like such a convoluted mess. Everything was just like kind of trickled to like bolted together, you know. There's lots of airlocks. You'll like step from one bulkhead to the next, and then gravity will change because like that part is spinning at a different rate than where you were.
Whoops.
Who controls like each section?
No, for
I know I do.
section.
I control
So
everything.
the control is done by the council,
Okay.
and then there's a police force, and that's pretty much it. There's like depending on what your job is, there's like that union or guild kind of runs that aspect to it. So
Okay.
like the ranch has like most of the farm, like the livestock and farms. There's like farms in the other ones, but they're more aquaponics and life.
But there's like a master rancher, and he's the person that everybody who wants to talk to the ranch people like goes through.
Not necessarily goes through, but there is like a master rancher, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
But it's also humanity, and so people are political.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a real small town feel, guys. Like, remember, there's like only 6,000 people, and not only is there only 6,000 people, the government gives you a lottery on like if you can have kids or not, right? So it's like secret babies is also a thing that people do against the law.
Baby lottery.
Yeah.
Oh wait, are there still mining projects?
So not really. It's pretty like that was like one of the big things is they have like a lot of the old miners in the guts, and they also have like an inventory in there. And there's not really the industry. So there's a couple things that are really like limited, and one is solid state fuel for rockets to like go and haul stuff. There is some, right, because you do have to do EVAs and walk and repair stuff on the outside. But they don't really have the facility to manufacture large quantities, so that's a very controlled substance. It's like rocket fuel. But every once in a while, there are like asteroids in the L5 system that were brought there to mine, and so it is possible, but it's like a once in a generation thing that happens. It's not very common, just because it's so dangerous. Right, this is a big spinning ship, and right, like one accident and humanity's gone. So
I'm into it.
So
I like the mini
humanity is literally just waiting for Earth to become habitable.
yeah,
They're just trying to survive.
yeah.
Okay.
as far as we know. But what do we know?
well,
Well, except for you.
How long did the Dead Ring happen? How long?
Like a little over 100 years.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, and the Agoj, that's the training facility, right?
It's like the school. It's like
Okay.
it's like they take you away from your family and then you like school there for like 8 years.
Isn't it a bad idea to put all the children on a broken ring? Like,
So the idea is that it like
You can't escape.
it's like a controlled environment and that they can train you on like spacewalks and they train you how to like be safe in the most dangerous environment.
If
Right?
you die,
And if you die, that's just more open for the lottery, right? So
Yeah.
it's not like uncommon for 1 or 2 people in the class to die.
how large are the classes?
Like between 30 and 60, depending on the lotteries.
Per month?
No, per year. Like
it's like an 8-year period and go in cohorts.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right, I forgot the
What's the
year.
churn rate?
Well, 1% cohorts annually. or 1 to 2 of a 6 class. So what's that? Yeah. 2% annual churn.
Yeah, that's right.
Body churn. Wait, is it 1 to 2 per year or 1 to 2 per cohort?
1 to 2 per cohort. Well, and it's normally
I am Maximo Cassowary, and
Is he weary?
no, but he loves cassowaries. He knows a lot of cassowary facts.
What is a cassowary? Like castle? What?
No, cassowary is a flightless bird. So I am the son of Ernest Cassowary. I have an older sister named Tess Cassowary, and my family works in the shipping, whatever, of this community. And my dad.
So you guys specialize in like moving large equipment up from the guts to the market.
Well, I thought this
Or
was
like-
a larger
like-
space community, and I thought we were like shipping stuff, but whatever. We move stuff around and help
Yeah.
ship things around
You're-
within the system.
Because like that's like if you have if you have like large freight that's got to go up the spine, that's like an engineering
yeah, we
challenge, right? And,
specialized at EVAs.
Nice.
Okay.
Yeah, and so training at the Goje
Yeah.
is to become like a manager of like shipping routes and everything, and like know how to like move everything around the space station really well. And after I got out of the Goje, I did my apprenticeship with my father's shipping manager, Naomi Nance. I'm really good at everything.
Everything?
Yeah, really good. But we're not the #1 group of shipping people. There's another group above us.
It's like another family that's
Yeah,
like
there's another
there's
family.
another family that like strives back
Goes
and
back
forth, and it's all
generations.
about the political connections.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We're like trying to become the #1 family.
I put a lot of it in the
Yeah.
street.
So I'm Vet Talon Bale, aka the Mechanical Marshal, aka the Clockwork Constable. And I specialize in. So I'm a roboticist. I was trained as a roboticist, and I'm now a marshal specializing in robotics and robotics and robotics related crime. My father is Jared Simmons, who's the High Justice. And the way that it's a small police force, so I'm part of a relatively small police force, and like the preeminent technologist on the police force. And the way that the police force sort of work, we don't really have traditional division of labor between we have lawyers and shit, this big mechanical system, but they're kind of fast and loose with the way that law works. So I'm one day I'll be cracking heads, and one next day you'll be doing investigation, the next day you'll be adjudicating a trial, because it's all just sort of rolled into one.
And the trials work a lot like medieval court, where you go and petition the noble. Except for now, this is the council sitting up there. There's few enough major crimes that it's a deal when something happens.
Yeah, I also sort of assume that there's almost a pseudo bounty hunter aspect to it. It's not like you're literally a bounty hunter, but it's just that we don't have a formal police force in the same sense. So definitely having sway in the community gets your crime looked at first. So there's definitely some element of being connected. One big defining thing is that my mother was murdered in relation to a crime. So my father was a justice, and he had convicted someone of some sort of black market something, and then he, as a rebellion, he murdered my mom. They never could prove it, and the case cold. So the case went cold. They never proved who had done anything, but the guy who was most suspected just sort of disappeared. So but no one knows what happened there. So yeah, the big thing is I also trained as a roboticist in the Agoj, as underneath one of the preeminent roboticists in the space. And so I came up as a roboticist, and then did probably 10 years between the apprenticeship and robotics, building and redesigning machines. And then at some point, we talked about this. A seat came open in the constabulary, and I was transferred over.
Yeah, and so that seat was the new captain. He was one of the youngest captains.
So he came up as a marshal.
Yeah, Captain Gerald Jackson. So he he's one of the youngest captains ever to be picked. and he kind of came up under this at the same time as your mother being murdered, and like this is the same time you moved over to the crime division. So that's all like kind of nebulously tied together in some way.
Cassia Barnes. She is the daughter of one of the senators, I think the MD Supreme. I just picked that at random.
Sounds pretty sweet.
Yeah.
Wasn't she hearing drugs and shit, right? Like,
She grew up. She grew up just like loving her dad and like very like well-to-do, rich like.
Yeah, you're the
Shoes.
medical chief, like your mother is like is one of the senates and like is in charge of like the medicine.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
wait, so is it your father or mother who's?
We did my mother, just
Yeah.
one of the seats, yeah. But basically, when she was young, there was an accident. She had an accident. Her and her brother, they were both. They were on one of the rings, and there was some sort of machinery that like got fucked up. I'm making this up as I go, by the way.
Yeah.
And her feet got cut off.
Nice.
And her brother like got injured, but they weren't able to save him, and they ended up giving her robotic feet, which
Nice.
make her like extra stealthy. They basically make no noise. And
What
they're,
like
super-
what are they? Are they like little
Yeah.
suction cups? Like what are they?
I don't know. Some awesome space material. That just,
Yeah, like-
absorb sound. They absorb sound, and they make her like really fast. Pretty fast and pretty sneaky. So those are my main things. But
I like the idea that they have like compressed air in them and say like suction to like whatever they're on. So like you could, if you're like in 0G, you can like, stick to the walls. But
that's
also like
cool. Yeah,
they
like,
make you fast by like pushing air through them. So then
Yeah.
you like have like lift on your run. I like it.
yeah.
I like
but
it.
she ended up feeling like very like anti her mother. It was her mother's decision. Like that she knew that her mom had like the ability to save her brother, but she chose not to.
Because it would have been too much medicine, and that was like outside of the budget.
Exactly. So when she
Ooh,
when she
cool.
became a teenager, she started sneaking out to the guts and started to like harvest mushrooms, and she learned how to like make a lot of medicines and stuff. And then she sort of ended up getting really like into the underground market for these things, and so she knows everybody in like the like seedy underbelly of the world. So she's really kind of like playing both worlds pretty well right now. Because her mother
Is she siphoning anything out from her mother?
What's that?
Is she like siphoning anything off of her mother's medicine, like to sell in the
She's
underworld?
pretty much just like taking the information of like how to make these things, and like she's
So she's making like bootleg,
She-
secondhand quality, like
because she trained in medicine at the Agoge, and
Yeah.
then she apprenticed under her mother
right.
as like the next MD Supreme. But really, she's like trying to like
Break away.
make sure that the people that need medicine get it. But she's kind of doing it by like really like getting into like the seedy underbelly and like getting in with.
Almost like Robin Hood-esque.
Yeah, exactly, a little bit. But she's pretty badass.
Character?
Yeah.
My character name is Roy Almanac. His family is from the third ring called the Anvil, where most of the hard laborers are from.
Good name.
He's kind of small. He's like 5'6", 5'7". He kind of hunches his back a lot. He's kind of like an underfoot person. People don't really take notice to him. He's like the opposite of that guy. He's not flashy at all. He's very forgettable, and he's really good with robotics. He lost his eye at a young age, and he has a robotic.
Maybe that was a Goje accident.
Yeah. Some left vague. People don't really know. He doesn't really talk about it. He actually made it look very real. So unless you're really paying attention, you don't notice it.
Or you know him, yeah.
That's what I
He
have.
made his own fake eye.
Yeah.
Nice.
And that works into my stunts. So.
Nice.
So what's he doing now? Do you know?
So he just graduated from
Oh,
the
he's
Goje,
yeah.
so he's
So he's like in his apprenticeship as a roboticist.
yes.
So normally what you do is you go to the Goje and then you apprentice for between 2 and 4 years, depending on what you're apprenticing for. And that's like where you go around and you just basically be an apprentice, right? For whichever job the Goje, like chancellor.
So I guess I just graduated. My character basically just graduated, so he doesn't
Nice.
even know what his next job is.